to listen and to hear what those individuals are looking for at their deepest soulful level. You know, do they really, do they really need this? Do they really, if they don't have a terminal diagnosis, sometimes they need to be able to find the help that they need. So again, the reason why I'm giving these examples is that we're a resource. We have a lot of information from a lot of different angles that's coming in. And it's not an automatic, oh, yes, we'll be right there. We'll guide you right through the end of life. It's like, no, let's really assess it. Now, there's times when when individuals are coming in and it's dire, they've just been released from the hospital, given a prognosis of 6 months. We show up, it's actually 3 days. Again, when I talk about the doctors, some of the doctors, they don't really tell you or talk about what's happening with someone's diagnosis at the end of their life. I mean, I have so many stories that I could share with you, but one instance was a very young mother. She had 4 children, young family. They said, you have 6 months. They call us, please come. We come, we show up, 3 days. That's tragic. So the point in telling you that, and we'll talk more about how you engage us and when you engage us, is it can happen at any time. Like, I even encourage the youngest people that are healthy, you need to have a plan, because you never know. You absolutely never know. So doulas, we're called death doulas, we're called death midwives, we're called, end of life specialists, end of life doulas. There's a lot of different titles. When I first started my training, there was maybe 1,000 in the US. Now there's over 10,000. So they're coming out quickly. We get trained from several different organizations that that are nationally renowned, and also into the other countries. But the one that I really like the most is the University of Vermont, because they have tied their end of life doula program with their medical school. So the doctors are exposed to this, so they have the knowledge, so they can have a conversation before it becomes too late. You know what I'm saying? Has anyone ever known anyone who's been in a situation where they ended up, having a diagnosis and being told, you have a certain amount of time, but never really having a plan together? I'm sure you've seen this, right? Yeah. Well, so there's a lot of organizations, and in the deck that will be distributed, you'll see some of those organizations. So like I said, the deck will come out after this presentation tomorrow, probably. And it is a recap of what I'm talking about. And if you need more information, you'll be able to visit the site, etc. The doulas that are coming in there, a lot of us are lay people, like I said, to the industry, like I came from corporate America, but a lot of them are social workers, a lot of them are clergy, nurses, hospice volunteers. And it's because they're coming into a space because they can sit with illness and death and sadness. And this is sacred work. This is not an easy task, but if you're able to sit with it and be okay with it, meaning, not letting it absorb into you or not letting it, affect every part of your day, it is very humbling. It's very humbling. And it's a blessing to be able to do it, I have to say. We have, there's end of life doulas that specialize in different things. I'm sure you've all heard of medical aid in dying. So that's a big thing. And VSED, which is volunteering, stopping eating and drinking. And those individuals sometimes are the ones that have, a sort of dementia. And unfortunately, like I gave the example earlier about the person that had called me who just needed good medical care, people will ask for that. And it's our job to work with our integrity. So if I get a call and someone's like, yep, this is what I want to do, I want to die, and I'm like, no, we're gonna see where we can refer you to really ensure that, number one, you're emotionally stable, and number two, there's nothing else that can be done for you. A lot of times money comes into play, but I work really hard to be able to try to find resources for those individuals because, again, at the end of the day, Holly Strelzik, Center for the Heart, believes that life is more is precious, and that if there's a chance for that individual, they need to be given every chance. If not, then yes, I will be by your side and I will help you. Um, our services, like I said, can be very logistical. We've had some cases that were very complicated where the individuals calling us, the couple, I'll use an example of a couple calling, had no family or friends, had nothing in order, had no will, no proxy, no health proxy, no power of attorney, nothing. Both needed to be on hospice and needed home health aides and needed ramps. And, there were all of these things. So we can come in, we get the job done, we make sure that they have everything they need. And until someone else steps up, we're it. So we are the family. So as an agency ourselves, we're working with all the agencies. We're in normal condition. I'm using the word normal, but nothing's normal, right? In other conditions, it will be a family member or a trusted friend or whoever that they've decided is going to be there for them. And the logistics can get pretty incredible and complicated, and it can go the gamut. I mean, there's been some cases where we've had to remove ammunition from the house before any other agency would step into the house. And we do all of that. We facilitate all of that. We just get it done because our mission is to be able to go in and care for them at the end of their life. So whatever is necessary, whatever it takes, okay? There's all sorts of policies and procedures that go in. Everyone is insured, bonded, the whole thing. We're not just walking in as people that want to serve, which is a beautiful thing, but you really have to have your P's and Q's minded, right? We again, when we get to burials, if families have not put that in order, we can facilitate green burials. We can do home funerals. We're trained to do that. We don't walk in with any spiritual mandate. So, we work with all different types of religions, like I said earlier, and all different types of cultures. So it depends on the family and the individual. If I have a Christian, doula, and I have a Jewish doula, and I have a Buddhist doula, and the family is nothing, then it's going to be who resonates with the family. Meet my doulas and decide, who do you feel the most comfortable with? Because that's really key. As the process continues and that individual decides maybe that they need other resources, or we see that there's a lot of psychological work that needs to be done, we call in psychologists. Chances are they're already on a hospice, so we bring in the hospice who has a clergy, or maybe we need to contact another clergy, for that individual if they were affiliated with a church or a temple or wherever, right? Unfortunately, right now we are not covered by insurance. And there's only a couple of cases where birthing doulas are covered by Medicaid, okay? That's in a couple of states. And then but then there's corporations who now are becoming aware of who we are and are giving that, how people have flex accounts with their corporations, they will get like extra money for, whatever is necessary for a death. And doulas have been paid from that pocket. But again, I would say 90% of the doulas do charge fees. Our job as Center for the Heart is to be able to give it. If you can't pay, because we need to be paid at some level to be able to sustain ourselves, then you get it for free. So it's, again, it is about maintaining the dignity and the respect of these people, no matter where they come from, no matter what's been going on in their life. Okay. We walk in, no judgment, seeing those individuals as human beings and treating them for what we see right in front of our face. So if a person has a history of suggested abuse, we can't judge that. We are here to serve you as a human being, right? Um, the differences between hospice and us is hospice and hospitals and communities in these settings, these organizations don't have the structure to provide ongoing resources constantly. We come in with no restrictions to provide, the spiritual, the emotional needs of that person and that family. We're there as much as they need us, as least as they need us. Sometimes it's a couple hours a day, sometimes it's all day, and sometimes being on 24-hour call, depending on the circumstances, right? So it's really what the individual case needs, because we want them again to feel safe, to feel heard. Even the families are key in this, because for those that don't have family or friends, it's different. We are there as their safety net. The ones with families, then you have all of this noise sometimes going around, meaning that there's a lot of, maybe there's dysfunction, maybe there's, estrangements. And then it's really important to make sure that, okay, this is what mom wants. I know that you guys all have your opinions and everyone else has their choices to make, but this is what she wants. And so this is where we're going to hone in and take care of her. Okay. We empower them. We give them all the tools that they need to achieve those wishes for their loved ones. Again, and that's from a resource standpoint. And if we don't have it readily, we'll find it, because we will. That's just, I treat the cases as if they're my own, my own loved one. And when I mentioned my husband, John, his name is Jonathan, I look at him and I know what needs to be done necessarily. And I myself have hired a doula because I need some help, you know. I need help in getting everything together. And it's not just a little thing, it's a lot. Because God forbid something happens to the caregiver, right? Then what happens, right? Um, people say, well, when should we contact you? What's the best time? And truly, it's when you're thinking about it. It's now. It's when you're younger, trying to get my own children to really not to be morbid. And of course, they think it's all morbid, but I'm like, listen, we don't know what's going to happen. So you need to have some sort of a plan, whether it's your documents are important, but it's also think about how you want your your end to be for you, and what that gives is the gift of living your life, because and then everything else becomes just more precious. So again, for me, and I know, sometimes I sound, people call me mushy sometimes. I'm not really mushy. I just know how precious this is. I mean, when you're close to death yourself and then you have your own, you see, this is important. This is really important, because, the grief work as it weaves in and it weaves out is to think about this. Um, I have my own. He's probably going to go before me. I want to make sure that everyone around us, the close family, the children, the grandchildren, everyone is as equipped with tools that they can have, so that when he does die, it's not a shock. It's not that, yes, of course it's going to be sad, but any unfinished business has been dealt with. So we can mourn with no regret, Because, you know, think about it, you know, people walking around through life and, you know, you've got all sorts of tragedies happening. You have wars going on. You have, I don't need to name them. You know what it's like in the world. But I think, and this is my personal thought, is that a lot of those people are just so pent up with despair and grief. And where does that come from? Comes from everywhere. It's generational. I'm not going to get on that whole soapbox because I know that that can be a whole other conversation, but that's what I believe. Um, but anyway, yeah. So the whole thing with the insurance right now is is bothersome. It will happen. The agencies and the associations that train the doulas are working with the hospice and palliative care associations and working with Washington to try to get us covered. It will be good if that can happen. However, then that brings in a whole other level of like compliance and accountability and, you know, just bureaucracy, which in some cases can be good, but in some cases can really hold us all up. And none of us want that. Um, you know, we have been doing this work, like I said, you know, me personally for about 13 years. And as time has gone on and I've seen the cases roll in and roll out, and they can be very short, they can be very, very long. Being able to work with these individuals and work with people like Sherry to help us. Okay, we have to get our documents together. We have to get all this in order. And now let's talk about what that looks like. What does that end look like? Is really, it is a very um, arduous task because we're still educating. You know, we're still educating. So my question to you guys is, first of all, do you have any questions? And I'm sure you do. But knowing what this very brief introduction that I did, would you be inclined to work with a doula? Raise your hands. Feel free to talk. Yes, Marilyn.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you know, I think what happens, you know, we have family members around, and like I said, you know, for whatever reason, sometimes the dynamics aren't appropriate. I mean, I'll just share my own personal case is that no, I don't think that my children are mature enough to handle what I would need. Absolutely. I need somebody to help me and to really ensure. And why you say absolutely? Tell me, Marilyn. Tell
Well,
me.
I don't know. It just seems like
A nice thing.
good idea. I think the doula would help my son and daughter-in-law more
Yeah.
as well as it would help me
And that's the
because
goal.
I have the 5 wishes forms
Yeah.
in place
Good.
and they've seen it, but I don't know if they actually could carry out some of the things.
Yeah.
But to
Yeah.
have some help to carry out putting a picture on the wall where I can see it, whereas the river goes winding and it reminds me of going into the unknown, you know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that picture a lot.
Oh,
So
that's
I've asked them to, it's on the form, ask them to place it where I can see it if I'm, if and when I'm on my way out.
yeah.
I have had surgery on my heart just a
Mm.
year and a half ago, and I don't know if it's going to, you know, uh, have a sudden turn or if it's just going to go downhill gradually.
Yeah.
Everybody has to go downhill some
Yeah.
sooner or
That's
later. My
yeah.
cousin, now I'm 88, my cousin is 95, almost going to be 96,
Mhm.
and he's got a long way. He's going slowly. He'll
Yes.
pop back slide back and then he'll go forward. And
He's
it's
circling the
very,
drain a little.
yes, it's very difficult on his daughter, grown
Yeah,
daughter, and on his wife.
yeah, it is.
I was going to ask you, Holly, to describe some of the services that you provide during the active dying phase and the vigil and all that.
Right. So, a lot of people want to leave some sort of legacy behind. So we do engage in all different types of projects. It can be anything from a big, book to a video that they want to say to their future grandchildren and their great grandchildren, just so that person knows that they're known and remembered, and this is where they came from. It can be, one of the cases that we had, this woman was she was an editor and she was also a chef. So her wish for her celebration of life was to have everyone come together like they always used to in the past, bring their recipes, let's cook, let's create, and then let's just have a celebration like that. So she wanted hers done after her death. There's always the pictures and creating whatever it was that the individual really loved. Like I think about, there was an individual who loved his race cars and loved his motorcycles and, but was so active in the food pantry and doing all the work, and they created this huge collage and montage of all the work that he had done. So and they played it slowly or quietly, I'm sorry, quietly on the screen as he was going through. And it just brought so much joy to him, just to know that, yeah, this is who I was. Because, even as we get older, we think about, oh, wow, yeah, I forgot I did that. Or, no, I didn't do anything grandiose, but who cares, man? You added such value to the world already, you know? Um, Go ahead, Claudia.
I just have a question. If you're familiar with Memories Live, a program done by a woman, her first name is Kelly. I don't remember the rest. She's in New Jersey. It's called Memories Live.
Yeah, I've heard of her. I haven't worked with her before. Is she the one that does the videos? Does she do
Yeah, she
videos?
does these amazing videos and they're
Yeah.
free of charge. I guess she has, it's a
Yes.
501c. She's fantastic.
She's
I've
been
seen
around
her
for a
work.
long time, right?
Yeah, she does beautiful
Yeah.
work and now she can really work remotely.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So yeah, she does a really good job with that. So I just thought it might be a resource that you or other
Memories
people might
live.
be
Yeah.
interested in.
It's interesting. We have a lot of books that are created. They can be just little pamphlets like something like this, or they can be thin coffee table books or big, thick coffee table books or novels. Those things get expensive, and it's not necessarily always, it's definitely not in everybody's budget. But I have had people that have already done it all, gotten a diagnosis, not really that ill, and have put every single thing in order. So by the time we show up, it's just to complete it and to make sure that their loved one is taken care of. So, in one of my cases, the husband had already created really beautiful stuff. He did videos for his grandchildren, all of this stuff, put everything together, organized all of his, he had a lot, he was in the war, he was in World War II, and he had put together just these incredible volumes and had his medals put in box. I mean, he really did it all. And then it was about, okay, just make sure she's okay. And that was beautiful. So that's legacy work, all different types, depends on what they want, right? The vigil
I
is,
just wanted to say something. Carrie's the woman in charge of Memories Live, and it's memorieslive.org if you want to,
I
and they're
wrote it
out of
down.
Summit, New Jersey.
Oh, that's where I am.
Yeah, so not very far away at all, and they're wonderful.
Right,
Hmm.
right. Um, the vigil work, again, is what the individual wants. What we find is a lot of times they don't want to see certain people for whatever reason. It couldn't be family, it can be close family members, or it could be friends, or it could be, people that have been on the periphery forever. But our job is to make sure that that space is honored. A lot of times, what we do is to make sure, their space is what they want. So it's quiet, it's serene. She wants to look out the window and see the trees, or she wants to see the river, or, the horses, or whatever she wants to see. And then as people enter the room, it's, this is sacred work. We have them sit and just take a minute. Just take a minute before you enter the space. It's not, we're not going in there to be loud. We're going in there to be quiet. We're going in there to be soft. We're going in there to be gentle. Say what you need to say. Tears are okay. And remember that even when that person is non-responsive, they can hear everything. The hearing is the last to go, and like I said, just like the birthing process, the death process, it's a slow process. It takes a while for the spirit to leave, so creating that space and making sure that it's really adhered to. I mean, I kind of feel like a security guard sometimes, just making sure that everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing,
Find that a lot of people are creating playlists for the
Oh,
end.
absolutely. Their music, whatever music they loved. I mean, it's, we had one gentleman who just wanted to watch Jeopardy. So we found recordings of Jeopardy and he was just playing,
Right.
whatever it is that they need and that they want. And that's why it's important to put it together, because let me tell you guys, just because we're dying doesn't mean we can't be joyful, and this can't be it might, we're probably medicated and the pain is not that so bad, but you're aware, you're still aware, you're still aware.
What if you've worked with the threshold singers at all?
Oh, we work with thanatologists, harpists that come in,
Ah,
which are magical. But threshold singers,
yeah.
that's what they're called.
Yeah, they're a small group usually who are available at the time or near the time of death. They come in and simply sing, rather soothing, depending upon the person's temperament and what they would like, songs.
Well, that's wonderful. I'll definitely check that out. But it's been, a lot of more harp and piano.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
I personally like.
our
Pardon?
organization, our organization fortunately had the benefit of having two doulas, husband and wife team, on our board for at least one term, which is three years.
Oh,
And they ran one session where they invited the public in, and they had different presentations during that,
yeah.
open to the community.
Did they take you through like an experiential? Was it
As
experiential?
part of that presentation, they did that, yes.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's really powerful. And what did you think about that, Joseph?
Well, I think it was a good experience. Unfortunately, they didn't last that long. And we wanted them to stay, but they had other commitments and
Mm,
didn't last on the board, just for one term, which is 3 years. But it was a husband and wife duo.
no. And it's and that's it too, is that there's a lot of male doulas out there that are incredible, Women aren't the only ones doing this work. The men are incredible, and it's appropriate, some gentlemen only want gentlemen.
Holly, there's a great question from Linda in the chat. And she asks, what has to happen so the word gets out about death doulas and the value of utilizing such services? So much more difficult without insurance coverage, isn't
Yeah, it is. Guys, it's talks like this. It's talks to just give you information to let you know that we're out here and that we're serious. This is what I found when I first started exploring, doing the training, etc., was that it everyone was going out there and volunteering, which is wonderful, but I believe that we lost a lot of credibility because people were like, oh, she's just a good person. This is serious work. This takes a lot of commitment. This takes a lot of time. This takes a tremendous amount of energy and knowledge, both the emotional knowledge, the emotional awarenesses, and the logistics, and to be able to manage that. So the more we can talk, the more you guys can say, hey, there's a company called this, they do this, refer them. And it's an exploration. And it's what I'm also trying to do is there's a lot of very young people, young people for me are in their 30s who want to be in this space, and they're coming in and they're gathering all of the, younger generations for them to see too how important this is, which is incredible because those are the generations that are really struggling now, you know? So again, it's just talking. It's, hey, I heard this woman, her name was Holly, she does this. I don't care if they come to me, if I can just talk to them and just tell them that we're out there. If I don't resonate with them or any of our doulas, and if they want someone else, and you're right, the health insurance is a problem. That's why I started the nonprofit, because I don't want to turn anyone down. People will come if they can't pay, it's I was paid in pairs. A woman paid me in pairs. It was precious, but you know what? She needed it. She needed the help, and I was there, and I'm not turning anybody around. Unfortunately, my own personal situation is, and until he dies, I can't personally be out there so much, but I'm the one who's watching, managing, making sure that everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that we have the best, resources and referrals and everything else. It is a business, but it's a sacred business, you know? So for me, right now, and I'll just tell you this, we're looking for a fractional executive director to really start launching us, because we just got our status, and in order for it to thrive, we need that now, you know? And that's answering your question. And it's like, yes, we can bring these services in and it's no charge. That's what I want.
What are you need the necessity for the insurance for?
The insurance
Yeah, why do you need insurance? Well,
for
for what, covering what?
liability.
Liability.
Absolutely.
Have you known people been experienced being sued for?
No, but you know what, Joseph, unfortunately, I mean, you never know. There's been, you're dealing with families and they're raw and they're scared, and maybe there's a ton of dysfunction, and maybe there's a ton of blame. So it's, what the world looks like. If their loved one dies, and Holly was there, and, she, I don't know, wouldn't let the daughter in, and the daughter was the only one who could soothe the mother, like this is an example, then, well, it's Holly's fault. I mean, I don't like it, but as part of our training, we are told, if you're going to do this privately and not as a volunteer for a hospice, then you need to have insurance. It's like with any other, soft skills work, like masseuses, or I don't know, I'm a Reiki master as well. So even as a Reiki master, you don't know what people are thinking, what they're doing. And it's unfortunate that that's our society today. But no, I haven't had anybody, and we don't do things like, we don't transport, we don't, we're not doing a lot, we don't turn, the aides, this is their job. If the family member says, look, I want you to, make sure that mom's face is washed and hands are washed or whatever, we can do that. We can rub lotion, we can do all those things, but we don't do any clinical work. We're not, that's not our deal, unless it's a nurse that's a doula. And we do have nurses. Archie, did you want to ask something? Your hand's up.
Yes, some of our focus is on the funeral itself. You're
Mhm.
talking about important things leading up to it.
Yeah.
Also provide guidance with voluntary stopping eating and drinking, VSED, and what many people know as MAID or
Mhm.
medical assistance in dying.
Right.
How do you present that to families that are at a crisis stage?
So we don't offer, meaning we don't go in and say, these are your options. They have to say it to us. Okay. Um, Recently we had an individual, she was done and she was terminal and she was in a tremendous amount of pain and she wanted medical aid in dying. So what I did is I turned her over to Atlantic Healthcare, to that coordinator, to that person that starts the whole process, and they take it over. We do have doulas that are nurses that are, that have been trained in the medical aid and dying process. It's a very difficult, as you can imagine, for family members. Some are on board, some are not. Um, Again, because we don't go in with any spiritual notions, we don't make any judgment. We're there to support them with whatever they decide, okay? That's medical aid and dying. The VSED, and I don't know, Archie, you might not have been on earlier, but I've had lots of calls for people that wanted VSED that did not have terminal diagnoses, but were in, had been treated for all sorts of diseases and were in a tremendous amount of pain and they wanted it. Again, that has to be supported. So VSED is not something where you just stop eating and drinking. You have to be supported. And then it's about finding a hospice that will support it. Not many will. Okay. So, it's a whole cascading effect. Okay. So first of all, their decision, they request. Then they get counseled because, I send them to the End of Life Choices in New York to talk to the psychiatrist. And then it's determined what, whoever lives with them, caregivers, family members, whatever. All right, is there support in this household? Then it's about, okay, well, you need the medical support as well. So then it's finding out, is there a hospice that will support this, And then it's like, okay, we're here to support. So when I talk about support, it's not just for that individual in the bed, it's for all of those family members that are flailing. This is tough.
Can you explain the acronym VSED, please?
Volunteering, stopping eating and drinking.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did I answer your question, Archie?
Yes, Joseph, VSED
Right.
or VSED, as Holly refers to it, is something that requires a fair amount of careful preparation
Yeah.
and a huge amount of support. I've got a couple books on it because a person that I live in our community who's since died said she wanted it, but then when we talked about it, she changed her mind.
Yeah.
And so it's not that easy.
No, it's
Just
not.
Sunday, I was with someone who had had a massive coronary event. Totally unresponsive. And I said, do you have POA for healthcare? And that had not been done, but the nurse that was staying said, to the widow, now widow, you and your son both have the authority to stop any kind of treatment. And so that was their choice. And sometimes people don't know that. They don't
Yeah.
know that they can say, stop, because you can refuse treatment. That is not suicide. That is
Right.
absolutely legal in the state of New Jersey, and I believe throughout the country, that you can stop any form of treatment.
Of
The doctor
curative.
may disagree with you, but
Right.
the patient and the patient's advocates have that authority, which of course then sets it up for Holly to help the people through that emotional process of letting that person go and
Yeah.
then dealing with the consequence that the person will die.
Right. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. We've been in ERs when plugs have been pulled. I mean, it's tough. Um, but again, and those are the lucky people that have some loved one in their court. And there's people that don't. And that is horrific. Yeah.
As well as those who are scared to death of dying. So they're scared to death, they're going to die, but they fight it as hard as they can. I understand that.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's a huge price that gets paid, not only financially, but emotionally,
Yeah.
the individual and the surrounding community.
And the surrounding people. So those people that are afraid of dying, I'll have to tell you a story. I got called to Florida. Of five children, adult children, all older than me. Okay, this woman was very elderly. And one of the daughters calls, she's afraid of dying. Please come. I go down. She wasn't afraid of dying. She was controlling the whole family from the bed. She was dying. She was totally dying. And what was really what my work ended up being in that case was not what the woman and the mother in the bed. It was the effects that she had on every single one of them. It was incredible. And we're talking brilliant people. One of them was a NASA scientist, and it was just like incredible intelligence. The mother had such control that was wreaking such havoc, and it was very sad that she even wanted her 96-year-old husband to go with her. He went out and got his gun. And so we had to, I was like, okay, all right, everybody, time out here. Mom, I don't know what your past was all about, but that was the level of control. The havoc that she wreaked, and then she died. And it was such, so it was that mixed emotion of relief. She's gone. She can't control us anymore. But then all of the ripple effects of how it had affected all of them, and how, it gets messy. It gets messy.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
here
plus,
she's
I
gone.
think the physical, reactions to be said are difficult, sometimes for the individual, sometimes for the family, but it's still their wish. So
Yeah.
doula could support the person as they go through it and make them as comfortable as possible, and also temper any kind of, natural.
Absolutely. And that's what a lot of the work is. It's that whole, keeping everybody in balance and making sure that, they're cared for whatever they need to be cared for. So if the daughters are really melting down and grief stricken or arguing or whatever's happening over there, then we help them. Again, it's just sitting and listening and asking questions, and then reflecting back. Okay, this is what's happening. This is what's happening, and then really it's doing the work. It's really doing the work and letting that individual who's, the family, the individual who's electing to use VSED or do VSED, it's really honoring that and helping them through it. I mean, but I have to say, I mean, I've seen a couple of cases when I was working with hospice that I've seen individuals that slept the whole time. And God bless them.
Marilyn, you have a question. We have time for 2 more
I'm
minutes
sorry.
of questions. Marilyn, your hand is up. I think you're muted.
Yes, okay. I'd like to share
Go ahead.
an experience after my heart surgery a year and a half ago. I was in the hospital and with complications, and I was unconscious for a lot of the time, for at least a week, maybe longer, I'm not sure. But one of the times that I half woke up, for a very short moment, maybe, I don't know, I had a thought. I didn't feel any remorse or fear or happiness or just no feeling. Didn't hear anything except my own voice saying to myself, if this is what dying is, it's not so bad.
Mm. Wow.
I went back to sleep.
And snored loudly. No, I'm just kidding.
Probably. I have no idea.
But
Thank
Wow.
you.
Oh,
Thank
wait,
you for that.
Marilyn, knowing you, you probably had done a fair amount of planning and you completed your life so that maybe there were not many, if any, loose ends. So you weren't dying with regrets or things that you know, wanted to finish but didn't focus on it because you thought you had forever, like many people do. You were
Yeah.
mindful of your mortality, probably for a while because you were on our board for a while. And doing that lets you complete your life in a way that when you get to the end, you have greater peace, right? Isn't that what it's all about?
Absolutely, guys.
Yeah, Sherry, I hate to disappoint you, but I have a lot of loose ends before the surgery, after, and now at the present time.
Oh,
Lots of them.
100%, but I would think that you were better than most in taking care of.
Doesn't everybody have loose ends?
Oh, absolutely. There's, you
Life is
know,
complicated. We're living longer. We have more stuff. We're not, you know, getting on top of our stuff. I mean, there's a lot to do to complete your life. But
yeah.
I think if your
You know,
mind,
right. And that's interesting because, when you talk about stuff, I had a woman call me and, she's in her 70s. She's I mean, she has some health issues, but nothing major. And she, I wouldn't say she's a hoarder, but she kept everything from, when her father back in the, I think he was born in 1910, she had his school books. So oh yeah, we went through, we started working. We just, let's talk about what you're going to keep, what you're not going to keep. And it's interesting because doing that process also helps someone unwind all the stuff that's inside them. So what ended up coming up for her was she, in her heyday, she did a lot of XYZ and she kept every, piece of advertisement and journal, and she had closets full. And I said, so, what part do you want to keep? What's most important to you? She goes, I just want my kids to remember who I was. And this was before she had kids, that she had all this stuff acquired. She was an older mother. And then so we started to unpack that. It's like, let's talk about that, and it's really interesting.
you kind of
It,
do a life review through.
exactly. But what was emotionally going on with her too? And it was self-worth. It's incredible what happens as people age. Some of them just, they feel like they have done nothing in their life. It's like, no, your mere existence has been a gift.
And everyone counts. Excuse me, we're coming up to the end of our time together. Does anyone have any questions for the group? Otherwise, I would say that, as Holly mentioned, we are going to send her deck out tomorrow and her contact information will be there so you could contact her directly.
Yeah, and it's just spread the word, guys, and if you have any other questions, please reach out to me. All my contact information is there, my phone number's there. Reach out. Reach out. Okay.
Right.
Thank
Holly,
you.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you,
Thank
Joseph,
you.
Archie, Linda, Kate,
you.
all Pat, Lisa, Alan. Thank you. Thank you so much.
There.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Good